Hey everybody, welcome to VolleyTalk. It is Tuesday, 3 o'clock, so you know what that means. We are talking all things volleyball. This week, we are going to be talking about hitting linear versus rotational, and the movements of what you use when you're hitting. So that's going to be our main topic of the day. We have some really good videos and visuals for you guys to go with this. If you have any questions, make sure you're asking throughout the live stream and we will be sure to answer them. But to get started, I'm your usual host, Darian, and then Billy's here per usual. Billy, if you want to give everybody just a little background.
Yeah, really quickly, Billy Glisson. I'm an exercise physiologist, undergrad in strengthening, masters in exercise science. I'm a strength conditioning coach and been involved with volleyball for 25 plus years, working on performance injury prevention.
Yep. Cool. So that's a little bit of Billy's background, but he's going to explain some training we actually just recently did with an athlete and the breakdown of why he did the training that way. So we're going to just start with video number 1 here. I'm going to make us small and the video will go big. All right. Awesome. We have this video here. I'm going to go ahead and play it, and then Billy's going to direct us on what he wants to talk about.
Yeah, we'll let a few seconds of this play and then we'll talk and go back and forth a little bit. So this is just a and let's freeze it there. That's as far as we kind of need to go. So background on this athlete, 16-year-old athlete out of Texas, flew up from Austin last week. Great little hitter. She's worked with us for 2 years, right? Power hitting master class, vertical jump master class. She's in the advanced hitting group right now, and she flew up for 3 days and was one of 3 different power core athletes we worked with last Wednesday. She was here Monday, Tuesday. This is her warm-up on day 1, right? And so we're going through our normal warm-up. And basically, to give you a quick visual of what we're going to talk about, once again, Darian said it, we're going to talk about, hang on to your socks here, rotational components in hitting and straight or linear components in hitting. And you're like, what? So I'm going to give you a little bit more background before we get in the video. A little bit further into this session, this athlete is up in the air hitting off a hook, and I asked her to tell me, because I could see something was kind of going on watching her hit. And I said, all right, what are you thinking about when you're hitting right now? And she stopped and she took off on this. She's a very smart kid, right? She's going to be a very smart professional. And she said to me, well, I'm not opening my chest to the right sideline. I'm not closing my hip to the left antenna. I'm not really creating very good hip and shoulder separation. And I'm not creating a lot of torque. And I said, stop, okay? You're way too deep inside your head mechanically. And so what I'm going to reinforce here or introduce is the concept that she has worked harder than we've probably ever trained, right? You give her something to do, and 2 weeks later, she's going to go out and learn how to do it and show you that, right? Her head was so full of rotational mechanics, turning your body, and that's what we do, right? We teach athletes who just use their arm up over their head, and we teach them to turn their hips, turn their core, turn their body, and swing, because that will create a lot more power when you hit the ball, right? You hit harder with a lot less effort if you use these rotational, these turning pieces of your body, right? But part of her and the other 2 athletes we trained last week, the objective was to get them to hit the ball harder, but to really transition from being inside their head, inside their body, thinking about all this mechanical stuff, all this technique, and get them to go into a competition mode to start being able, because today she leaves, if I remember right, she's leaving for 10 days to go visit colleges today, right? And go to camps and all that stuff in the summer. So it's like, hey, it's time to stop thinking about mechanics, especially rotational mechanics. I promise we'll get to the linear ones here in just a second. And it's time to start thinking about competing and hitting the ball hard and outcome, things outside the body, right? Like, where are you hitting the ball? So what I'm doing, you can see me pointing in the video here down on the line. I've got her warming up. She's thrown, and now she's hitting just simple warm-up swings when bounce hits to me. But what I'm telling her is like, look, you see that line on the ground? She's a right-handed hitter. I want her to line up, and I want her arm to go up and down that line, right through that line, hit the center of the ball, through the center of the ball, let her hand and arm, her right-handed arm or hitting arm, follow through down that line to me. And I'm her intended target, right? So imagine if she's trying to hit a deep 5-zone ball or 1-zone ball, wherever she's trying to go, the hand and arm are actually going straight while the body's turning, right? So here we go. We teach the athletes to turn their chest and shoulders to the right sideline, then turn their hips to the left. Their body's rotating right to left, and you'll watch her. She's throwing and hitting here. But then what I was trying to get her to understand was, look, you've got all the rotation stuff down. It's built into muscle memory, dude. You've been doing it for 2 years. You've got it. Let go of all that and let's get outside the body. Let's start thinking about hitting the ball to a specific target. And to do that, the arm, the hitting arm, needs to go straight from when she brings the arm up behind her, elbow comes up to the ear. Everything's got to be going down that straight line, right? And so if you play that a few times again, that's really what we're working on with her, is to get her out of her head thinking rotation, let go of those thoughts, and now start feeling what's it feel like to take your arm straight down that line as you swing, right? And imagine then, once again, if I was on the other side of the net and she was swinging, wherever her intended target is to hit the ball, that's what we want to have her do. We want her hand and arm to go through the center of the ball, and the hand and arm both go down that straight line to the intended target. Then that right hand goes down to her left hip, right? Good rotational deceleration mechanics. We're going to hit hard. So anyway, that's a long-winded intro. That's the difference. Rotational components are just your hip and shoulders opening and closing, turning from right to left, if you would. But the linear pieces, and here we go, what I said to her and two other athletes last week, turning your body creates a lot of rotational power. It helps you hit the ball hard. It takes the stress off the shoulder and the spine. But maybe the most important thing now where they're at in their training is to hit the ball with the arm that's going straight from point A to point B. Makes sense? So I'm going to stop, take a breath here, and you can respond to that, or where do you want to go with this?
Yeah. Can you tell us why it's important to be able to get to this next level of more hitting straight through the ball?
Yeah, well, it's one's velocity, right? Straight is, shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And in fact, it was funny. You can see the 3-point line there on the ground. She was there with Coach Lauren, who was there with me that day. And in about 20 minutes from now, I had this athlete standing on the in line, and I had her run around the 3-point line and race Coach Lauren, right? Coach Lauren was on the in line. And Coach Lauren only had to walk at about maybe half speed to beat her, as Mia was sprinting around the outside of the 3-point line. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So if we want to hit the ball hard, get more kills, get more velocity on the ball, the hand and arm need to go straight, right? We're not throwing where the body's turning, but we don't want the hand and arm coming out around the body. That's going to actually slow the arm and the ball speed down, right? The other part of that is control, right? At the end of the day, and once again, we talk about competition. You got to go out on the court and get the ball over the net, get the ball in the court with velocity. It doesn't matter. Coaches aren't going to love what you can do unless you can get the ball in the court and score, right? So it's about velocity using a straight arm. It's about ball control. It's a lot easier to control the direction you want the ball to go if your arm's going straight through the ball. We're not trying to spin the ball or hit the side of the ball. We're trying to go right through the center of the ball with arm speed, take that hand and arm and ball right to the intended target. So that's what we're working on here is we're warming up throwing and we're warming up hitting. And then everything we did all week with her, we reinforce those pieces. Go up in the air, hit off the hooks, hit off a set, hit off a toss. Body's turning fast, but let all that go. You've got that. Now take your hand and arm in a straight line, fast, easy, loose, through the ball, in the direction you want the ball to go. Deep 5 zone, deep 1 zone, wherever you're trying to go, everything's in a straight line from point A behind the head and back here to point B out in front of the body, straight line.
Yeah. So velocity is obviously a big part of that. What do you see that when athletes are maybe developing mechanics, do you see them hitting more not straight through the ball? Is that why this was such a big topic when you were training her?
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. She's a left side hitter, right? And I made a mistake probably 10 years ago. I was working with a Division I local college program and working with their hitters in the summer, right? And then the fall, the college coach calls me day one of practice in the fall and says, whatever her name was, is hitting the ball, pulling the ball out of bounds. She was a left side hitter, right? So I went over to practice the next day and watched and said, oh, it's my bad. What was happening was we hadn't taught the girl to actually swing through the ball straight with a straight arm. She was rotating her body, and the hand and arm were coming around like maybe throwing almost sidearm in baseball. Their arm was coming way out here, if you guys can see me. So it's really hard to control the ball direction if the arm's going in a circular path or pattern around the body, right? So, basically what I told the Division I athlete was, you got to swing straight through the ball. You got to go through the ball, straight arm, same thing while your body's turning. So there are rotational turning components of the body to create power and force and torque, hip and shoulder separation, all those things that Mia knows and understands in her head and she can do with her body. But then the icing on the cake was, all right, dude, now it's time to get to arm speed with a loose, fast arm going in a straight line. Both are important.
Would you say, so you talked about hip and shoulder separation, rotational, all of those things. So your body is doing one thing, but your arm, while your body is still turning, your arm can still do another thing. So it's almost separating then again your arm from your body.
From your torso, yeah, well put. In fact, actually, great comment, great observation, because I've never heard anybody actually pick that up. So good work, pat yourself on the back, right? So there's hip and shoulder separation, and there's arm and kind of torso separation, right? That's super advanced, but yes, there's a sequence: hip turns, torso turns. That fast turn of those puts a stretch on the muscles on the front side of the shoulder, the anterior deltoids, the pec major, internal rotators. They're pulling, but we don't want the arm to get pulled once again rotationally around the body. We want it going from point A to point B, loose, fast, and in a straight line from point A to point B. Then after we get my hand following through to the target line, if I'm going deep 5, then my right hand, my hitting arm and hand are going to come down to my left hip.
Yeah, makes sense. That's all really good stuff. But how do you get to this point of, let's say you are hitting out here, not straight through the ball? How do you get to the point that you can do that? What does the training need to look like?
Teaching and awareness. And of course, as you know, when we run our clinics, when we run our master classes, the first thing we're teaching, some of the young athletes come in, there's no rotation. So we teach them to take a step first and then to start learning how to rotate their body. So, this is Mia that day, or actually this is Tuesday working with Kelly sitting here, but this is a warm-up activity. So continuing this thought, if you'll play that a little bit, this is her going through one of our common strengthening exercises. We've got a band on the torso harness, a band on the right elbow, her hitting elbow, and we're just working on her activating the rotational muscles. And then here I come with an antenna and say, hey, don't forget your body's turning, but your hand, elbow, arm need to go down this straight line, right? So we need to train it, we need to teach it, and then all the way through the master class, we're teaching rotation of the body. And then now we bring in these athletes and say, okay, you've got the rotation, you've got hip and shoulder separation. She can get the reverse power C kick her feet. She can do all that stuff, right? She's pretty much a world-class hitter at the age of 16. But now it's like, now we got to take the next level. More advanced training says loose, fast arm in a straight line. And here's the deal. Her velocity would go up when she would either throw or hit 6 or 7 miles per hour when she would loosen up her arm, and her arm, hitting arm, and elbow and hand would go loose through the ball. Her velocity would go up from 36, 37 to maybe 43, 44, 45, right? Depending on what we were doing. It makes a huge impact in velocity. It makes a huge impact in terms of their ability to hit a ball on the spot, in the court, right, where they can actually score.
Yeah. And would you say, what kind of hit does this create? Is it trying to go straight down, right? We're not talking about cut shots here. We're not talking about specific shots here. It's more about the power shot. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So let me answer that in 2 pieces.
Yeah.
On a power swing, we're trying to hit the ball hard. We're trying to terminate, a point, get and score here, right? So we're going to turn the body, and yeah, we want the hand and arm going straight through the ball with speed and velocity. However, with all that being said, the same thing could apply then. Let's say she's still hitting left side, but she's going to hit a cut shot to the 4 zone, right? She's still going to turn her body, her hips and shoulders from right sideline to left, and she's still going to take her arm and hand through the ball to the 4, right? The arm hand and still going down. The line is different. It's a little bit across the body or a little bit to the right because we're pushing the hand and ball right to the 4 zone, right? As the body's turning away from the arm. But the principles are still the same. Turn your body to create torque, create power, add that torque and power now to your arm, and maximize that arm speed and ball speed by taking your hand and arm through the ball in the direction you want the ball to go, right? So you can think of it as this, that straight line of the arm, hand, and ball, That's the steering wheel. That's how you direct the direction of the ball. That's how you make the ball go where you want it to go.
Mhm. And could you break down maybe what the gear is doing here and how it helps her learn this movement?
In terms of the equipment, yeah. So, basically that's the Parker 360 training system. She's got a hip harness on, but right now she's sitting there and we're having her squeeze the ball, push the feet on the ground, basically lock the hips and legs down to the ground. As she turns her shoulders to the right sideline, that's the opening of the shoulders. Shoulders turn to the right, bands help pull her to that position. And then now the bands resist the turn of her torso, around her torso harness. The band resists her right elbow. So we're turning on muscles that rotate the chest, the shoulder, the spine, and work the tricep, work the arm, work the muscles on the front side of the chest and shoulders to create that arm speed. But once again, shoulders and core are turning, arms and hand are going in a straight line in the direction we want her to learn to do that. And of course, even though she's doing band exercises, this is really probably getting into the deep stuff. We won't stay here long. We're telling the athlete in this case use the least amount of effort to do this exercise, right? So we don't want people to go out, athletes to go out and put the biggest, heaviest band they can on their arm, one that could hurt their shoulder or elbow or something. We're telling them once again, the secret here is not just get how strong you can get with your arm and shoulder and rotator cuff, right? It's can you create looseness in your arm so your core is turning with speed, but your arms needs to be loose. And once again, when it's loose and goes through the ball, for her, we'd see 6, 7, maybe even 8-mile-an-hour increases in the ball speed when she would hit when her arm was loose and the arm was going relaxed and fast through the ball.
Yeah, so I think one thing for any athletes or parents or coaches watching this, the gear definitely helps with all the things Billy said, but also once they take the gear off, that's when the real magic happens, I would say. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you're really getting into the weeds. It's like the roles are reversed here today, right? So, but typically, like when the bands are on, the muscles of her spine are getting resisted to turn her shoulders right there from right sideline, and she now turns her chest and shoulders from right to left. The band on the elbow or the wrist or wherever it's connected at now, it's actually on a wrist at this point in time. It's resisting the muscles on the front side of the shoulder. So you're right. We do, a couple sets of probably 10 reps fairly slow when the bands are on. We disconnect the bands and we go and hit, right? When those bands come off, you're right, the magic happens. Those muscles around her chest, shoulders, her core, they are on, they are engaged, they are lit up in a good way, right? And when you take those bands off, now the chest and shoulders are going to fly through rotation. The arm is going to come through in the pattern straight wise, linear wise. They're going to fire through quick, right? And the good news is the athlete doesn't have to think much now, right? Just let the body go. It's engaged, it's active. Take the bands off and go take this into throwing. Go take this into hitting on the ground. Go take this into hitting into the air, right? And following our methodology. But yeah, the equipment strengthens, it stabilizes, it speeds up the turn of the chest, the hips, the arm, whatever it is we're working on.
And how do you think so after once you get into, like you said, you get into hitting more so in the air or on the ground, throwing any of those things. But for the athletes that what's the progression to then get this hitting straight through the ball and being able to recognize what you're doing while you're actually hitting the ball in the air? How do athletes get to that point?
You got to start just like we're doing here. We're starting on the ground. We've done just a general warm up right before she gets to this point. Everything's warmed up, so she's not going to get injured. But now we're doing really specific activation or preparation drills, right? So we're already got her mind thinking, and really what's cool is we're turning on the right muscles around her core, her arm, chest, and shoulder to perform. So when we pull the band off and we stand up, we'll go and throw, right? Then we go from throwing into hitting on the ground or hitting into the net or hitting over the net, right? And we transition then step by step then into the air. We probably go into a hook and then we probably go from a hook to a toss, right? When they're going slow, they can think through it. By the time they get into the air, you don't have time in the air to think through all those things. So the step by step process of warming them up off the ground, getting the muscles engaged, actually works really nicely then by the time we transition to going into hitting into the net, hitting off the hook into the air, and then taking the hook away and hitting live balls, right?
Right. That makes sense. So they get into this progression, they realize what they're doing. Is there a next level to this besides for just hitting straight through the ball? What's the next level to that besides velocity going up?
Well, there's a couple things. There's kind of mindset, which we worked on Wednesday. And then right now, if we stay here for just a second, she's using a couple of warm up resistance level bands, right? And I didn't give you the whole video, but if we fast forwarded on another video and showed the rest of the session with her, you're going to see in about 10 minutes as she continues her warm up and activation, she's going to come back. She's going to have an orange band on her torso, a black band on her elbow, a gray band on her wrist. That requires a lot of strength and stability to be able to do that. So she's building higher level strength. So this is an athlete in the last year and a half. She's in an advanced program with us right now, and those athletes are having to do their program in the equipment, the PowerCore 360 training equipment at home, 2 or 3 times a week, and continue to build their strength so that when they come in, we don't have any issues with lack of strength, lack of stability. We've got all that. So for Mia, one of the things we'll do with her now is we're going to continue to make her stronger. So we're going to take the bands up, we're going to take the loads up, the resistance levels up. She's got mechanics that are super dialed in, right? So now we're just making her stronger, more powerful, right? And then the other side of it, maybe this is a session or subject for next week, is to get into the mindset stuff, right? That Jim was working with.
Yeah, that mindset piece. I mean, hitting straight through the ball and all of this stuff is super important. But if you can't get the mindset piece of it right and recognize errors and everything that Jim was talking about, it's a lot harder to keep progressing, I guess, as an athlete.
Yeah, they get stuck, and that's kind of where Mia was. I noticed, she jumps on Monday nights. We do an advanced power hitting Zoom class for the kids in the advanced, or I shouldn't say kids. We have some adults in there as well that are in that session. But I could tell on her driveway something wasn't quite right, and I needed her. So I just said to her about a month ago, "Hey, come up. We'll train you. We'll spend a couple days on the court, and we'll fine tune some things." And what I realized when she got there was like, she was like too rotational. She was too focused on the turn of her body, and that's where her head was stuck. She was so stuck on the rotation. It's like, all right, the rotation's good. It's cool, like once again what I said, but you got that. Let's focus on a loose, fast arm. Let's make your arm faster, more explosive, and then let's take that into hitting motions so you not only can hit hard, but you can hit hard with certain ball flights and hit a top spin ball and get the ball down in the court where you can actually put it to use and score a point, win matches, and make coaches happy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a huge part of it. And you're talking about the advanced masterclass here. I know that's not something we have ever necessarily talked about on here. So will you just give everybody a rundown of what the advanced masterclass is, just so they can understand?
Sure. Mia's a perfect example. She went through the basic power hitting master class, the vertical jump master class, and then essentially it's like she needed something else to do. And we have numerous other athletes, males and females, they've worked really hard. They've got, they went through the basic master classes. They're now ready for the next level. So we just started offering, Kelly and I, basically an advanced power hitting class, right? We do it on Monday nights. Hey, here's the deal. Right now, we don't even charge for it. We're just offering these kids that have done the work, they're super motivated, the next level of training. So we've given them a home program, more advanced, and we bring them in on Monday nights and we work with their technique and throwing and hitting and arm speed and all these things. And then probably where we should go with all this is saying these 3 athletes that were here, Mia was here for 2 days, and then on Wednesday, all 3 of them were here together. And it was basically probably the preview of our first advanced power hitting live clinic, right? Where we had 3 athletes who've done the work and are ready for the next level, mechanically, technically, tactically, right, and mindset wise.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody listening, if you have gone through our program before and you are interested in training more, definitely reach out to us, because we're looking to add more kids to the advanced and really being able to keep training the kids that we've already trained for 8 weeks plus. So if you are interested, please do that. Also, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask. There's quite a few of you on here today. So if you guys have any questions about what this training looks like, or any other volleyball related hitting questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them. But to continue on, so Mia's learning, let's say after all of this happened, she was hitting straight through the net. What did you see really? Do you have the exact numbers for velocity changes that she saw?
Yeah, I think her best swing all week was 46 miles an hour in the air, which is pretty good. We tell female athletes to be a Division I prospect. By the time they're a senior in high school, they got to be 50 miles an hour plus an hour to be a Division I legitimate prospect, right? So she's 16. She hit a ball 46 miles an hour in the air while she was there. We didn't change her strength in the 2 or 3 days that she was here, right? We just allowed her to relax her arm, have a faster arm, change her mindset, and really now start to focus less on the internal things of the body going on and external things, and start to trust her training, right? Start to do the things she's doing with power, speed, and confidence. And for her, especially, because basically you don't see it in this video, but day two at the first in the morning, she was throwing a ball, and I said I was having her throw a ball with velocity, and I said, throw right here to this target. And she threw, and I said, what were you just thinking about? She threw the ball over the net, right? And it's like, what were you just thinking about? She said, I was thinking about this. I was like, no, you weren't. Dude, you're in your head, right? I could see it. She wasn't even looking at her target. She'd moved back in overnight, back inside her head. And it's Tuesday morning. I'm like, you don't get to go back in your head. Your head's good. It knows everything it needs to do. Now get external. Get out here outside your body. Where do you want the ball to go? What do you want the flight of the ball to look like? Is it a top spin? Is it a curve? Is it a down ball? Where is it, right? Things we'll probably talk about maybe next week. But yeah, her velocity went up, peak 46 miles an hour for the week. She threw some balls. When we throw, we gun those as well. And she was probably in the 53, 54 miles an hour throwing, right? Those are where we're developing arm speed. And then we take that arm speed, the loose, fast, straight arm, into hitting drills. And once again, to the question you asked earlier, that's part of our methodology to go from warm up to activation to throwing to hitting on the ground and hitting in the air. It's a stepwise process that we've developed over the years that actually works really well. So yeah, Mia made huge changes and is on her way to, hitting the ball 50 miles an hour long before she's an 18-year-old athlete.
Yeah, which is where we want her to be if she has those D1 aspirations,
Yes.
to hit her. So that's really good. We have a question here on Instagram, which is interesting. It says, when bringing the elbow beside the ears of a slight when bringing the elbow beside the ears of a slight bend occurs in the spine, is that a result of spine mobility? Any thoughts on how to fix?
Actually, let's talk about that, and maybe we need to bring a video up. We don't have it right now, but if you look down the line, so if we're watching Mia hitting left side from on her side of the net, if we get behind her, you're going to notice her right arm will get over her left leg. The spine's actually not so much side bend. There'll be a little side bending to it as she gets to the ball. Her spine will be a little bit left side bent, but her whole head, spine, and pelvis are actually going to be tipped sideways. And I've had this now a couple times this summer where athletes we train, their coaches are saying, oh, she's tilting. Yes, you need to tilt. That's what every world-class hitter does. Their body gets sideways, they rotate. That allows their arm to come up and their shoulder to stay in a really good stable position to swing through the ball with a fast arm, hit the ball with velocity and control. And if I do this once again, if I'm standing up straight and I rotate like this and I hit a ball, where's that ball going? Out of bounds. Learned that years ago with the Division I hitter, right? Made that mistake that I didn't teach her. You actually do need to tilt. You do actually have to get your right arm over your left leg when you're in the air at contact from behind me or behind an athlete. That's what you should be seeing. That's the visual.
Yeah. And I think another piece to the tilt that maybe athletes don't realize is when their coaches, I mean, one of the main things I know, at least as an athlete, that I heard constantly growing up was get your elbow high, hit high, hit high. The tilt allows athletes to get even higher if you're tilting your arm. I mean, if you think about it, when you're reaching something, you go on a tippy toe on one leg and tilt and reach with the other. It's the same kind of concept there, just in hitting.
It definitely is. And to your point, do that again, Darian. Tilt to your, and now the point is she's tilting with her to get her, it looks like left hand up, if that's her right hand, whatever it is. Her arm and hand is up, but her shoulders are tilted. It allows her hitting shoulder to stay in a relatively good, stable position to hit the ball hard and tolerate arm speed and shoulder torque, right? Now sit level for a second and raise that arm up, right? This is the problem with the traditional high elbow. The shoulder isn't tilting, the spine isn't tilting. We can't really use very much rotation of the shoulders and spine. And now we put the shoulder in a position where you can impinge, pinch off some of the tissues on the top or front of the shoulder, right? And as you know, because you've had shoulder injury from those kind of swings, you know the drill, right? Yeah. So it's what you said is super right on. You've got it. You've got it dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, and if everybody listening, if you just did that yourself, if you just stood straight and lifted your arm up, you can feel the pinching right here. At least I can. After a while, it's like, oh, I don't want to leave my shoulder here. It feels like I'm raising my hand or something forever. Where if you're like this, it's a lot more of a comfortable position for your shoulder to just sit in. Which is exactly what Billy was just saying.
And once again, we've said this before, but just to drive home a point, we do teach a high elbow, but we don't teach a high elbow in the setup of the swing, right? We teach the body to open up. We tell the arm, or we tell the athlete to bring the arm down under the shoulder line. Once again, the shoulder's in a really good stable position to generate and tolerate arm speed, arm torque, if you would, shoulder torque. But when they actually get ready to go to ball contact, here I am, I'm over here, I've tilted this way. By the time I get to contact, my spine, my hips, my pelvis, my head have all rotated the opposite direction, and the elbow is coming up high. And that allows the elbow to come up. It allows the tricep to stretch, really strong muscle, and to get all the arm pop we can from the body and the arm. But we are teaching a high elbow, but it happens basically right before contact with the hand and the ball.
And I think athletes learning this motion where then their elbow comes up here, you're like grabbing almost like the tag behind your shirt. You could say your elbow comes here. It helps with that straight line, right? Like all from here, it's just here and you're straight. Versus if you're coming here, you could still be hitting like this. And I think that's a mistake a lot of athletes make.
It is, and that's, you asked the question earlier, and actually do that again a couple times slow, because that's the visual most athletes will do when they start rotating their body. The arm's rotating too, and it rotates across the body, so they're not, maybe they're trying to hit to deep 1 or deep 5, but the ball's not going in the intended direction because of this around the body circular path of the hand and arm instead of the straight line.
Yeah, I think that's something, I know that that's really high level stuff that I don't think necessarily a lot of coaches know out there. So being able to either give your athletes this information, learn this information as an athlete, or if you're a parent or have an athlete in volleyball, being able to just show your athletes what we're talking about here. I think that's a really big game changer for a lot of athletes out there, because it's definitely not something that's very commonly talked about. It's just a lot of the cues are different than what we suggest they would be for most coaches out there.
Yeah, and I'm going to just jump off the deep end here for a second. Pull me back if I've gone too long. But one of the things that I taught me of the analogy this week was, look, when I saw her going and hitting, she was rotating, but she was almost falling to the left. Why was she falling to the left when she wanted the ball to go forward? So we had a discussion about energy and where do you want your energy to go? The purpose of an approach, right, for an outside hitter is what? Speed, right? Straight line for the most part, right? Going from point A to point B that gives you forward speed, lets you jump higher, and lets you use your body to create momentum. And so when your arm actually hits the ball, you've got your body mass times speed. You're going to hit the ball harder in a simple sense, right? But yet when she started, she was falling off to the left. Here was the analogy. Mia's from Texas. I lived in Texas for 15 years. So I talked to her about a flatbed truck. I said, Mia, do you know what a flatbed truck is? And she said, yes, they're all over Texas. Yeah, they're all over a lot of places. A flatbed truck is just a big delivery truck, flat on the back. You could put a car or a truck or a trailer up there, right? But it's flatbed, right? And what I said to her was, the piece in your training right now is, man, you've got the twister, the hurricane, the tornado turning. It's really good. But now we've got to get the flatbed truck going, right? The flatbed truck goes from point A to point B. The flatbed truck is your step. It's your approach as you're coming in straight. And then you finish that with your arm, just like a flatbed truck, going fast, right in the intended direction you want that hand and arm to go. So she was able in a few minutes to start to get it and understand it in her head. And she's a bright kid. She's going to think through some things. But then she was able to get it with her body and start taking her energy and forces forward. And of course, when we did that, instead of her rotating off the ball and throwing over here, and her velocities and throwing her hitting might be 34, 35, 36, very quickly though, when she started taking the energy forward and the hand and arm loosely through the ball, we're in the 41s, 43s, 44s, right? Immediate change in velocity because the energy is going through the ball in the direction you want to hit. And while this may sound technical, it kind of is, but at the same time, it's really what you've got to do at the end of this to hit the ball hard and get it in the court in a 5 and a 1 and a 4 or 6, wherever you're trying to hit the ball.
Yeah. And I think that, you can't try to learn all of this at the same time, right? Like you can't try to learn rotation and hitting straight and doing in your mindset. It's really broken down in your training sequence, and you flow through and you keep advancing as you learn things further and further. And you gain that arm speed, you gain everything else with it. That's something that Power Core 360 is actually working on. We're working on a training sequence where we can really explain to you guys what your training sequence should look like, so you know, okay, this is what I'm training right now to get to this next level.
Yeah, and it's super important because, and I had a call from a parent yesterday, right? A dad of a 15 or 16-year-old boy, a hitter, right? And he wanted to do, he was like thinking, well, we'll do the power hitting master class 8 weeks and we'll do the 12-week vertical jump at the same time. I said, no, you won't. We won't let you even try because it's too much. You have to take things in bites, right? And you're right, Darren. Things athletes have to learn these things over time. It takes rep, it takes time, it takes thought. You get to a certain level, all right, you got that. Now get ready for the next piece of training, right?
Mhm.
That's exactly where Mia was at. Ione was there, Ella was there, right? So those three athletes got a dose last week of really advanced level training to take them from where they were kind of plateaued at now up to the next levels. And that's one thing, as you said, you're right. Kelly and I had a lot of discussion this last week, actually, with Mia's mom about how can we help them maybe navigate. There's all these things athletes are hearing they need to do, from strength to vert to conditioning to this, that, and the other. Well, you don't have to do them all this week, right? And if you do, you probably burn your kid out or burn yourself out if you're the athlete, and you probably hate the game. So it's like we were talking about, can we help you navigate like when to do these things? When is it appropriate for your athlete, right? And then when do they need to get out of their head, out of the mechanics, and get into mindset and the mental side and other things that are important. So yeah, if you try to do them all at once, yeah, it's way too much.
Yeah, definitely. So anybody who's interested in that, be on the lookout for the next few weeks. That's something that we're really working on. Or if you do have any questions, feel free to contact us for sure. And we can always help you kind of figure out what your training should look like for your athlete in particular. But that is all the time we have today for Volley Talk. Catch us again next week, Tuesday at 3 p.m. We will be I think we're going to maybe do a social question episode. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be putting up a lot of different um, things where you can DM us questions and stuff like that on our stories. So that way we can answer any of the questions that you guys have been having lately. We haven't done one of those episodes yet, so we wanted to let you guys kind of choose the flow of the episode, I guess you could say. So look out for that next week. And thank you guys for all joining today. We hope you guys got a lot out of today, learning something rotational versus linear while you're hitting. So yeah, thank you guys for joining today and for the great questions.
Awesome. See